All right, guys, we got an amazing one here for you. We are talking about 6 bounce-back players for fantasy football 2024, and we are talking about the news that happened yesterday with the Texans. I want to break that down here to start everything off with Diggs' acquisition to the Texans and the Super Bowl-bound Houston Texans. On the show, we got the great and powerful Jimmy. What's going on, Jim?
Hey, man, I'm doing great, counselor. How are you today?
Good, man. I'm ready to rock this. We got some bounce-back players that I really want to address that had down years last year. I want to dive into that. But before we do, guys, it's very important. A couple of things. We're going to get to the news and notes, but it's very important. Secure the 16-round draft so you can pre-order it right now. And it's going to give you all the sleepers, breakouts, optimal players drafted throughout. It's a video training. Guys, it's the easiest way to smash your leagues. I give you all the answers. I've done the research. I've done the homework. It's going to give you a massive advantage. Secure the 16-round. Use code SMASH. I've linked it below. And also, when you're checking out, pre-order. Secure your ticket. Pre-order 16 rounds, yes, but secure your ticket to the Fantasy Sports Summit. Jim, I don't know, we haven't talked since, but we've secured Rashid Shaheed, Tajay Spears, the top running back prospect out of this NFL draft, and Trey Benson. Pat Freiermuth is going to be there as well, and Frank Gore Jr. We've got NFL studs coming to the summit, and Jim is going to be there as well. Above all, you're going to be there, right, Jim?
Absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't miss it.
Excited, man. So we're going to have all those people there. It's going to be an amazing summit. It's a virtual live stream. You have a chance to ask these guys questions. Entered for a PS5. You can secure all that below. Under the 16 rounds, you can combo both. Guys, I can't express to you how amazing this is. All right, let's go into the news and notes here. Let's just go. We now have breaking news.
We now have breaking news.
All right, well, it's not really breaking. It happened yesterday, but I want to talk about it here. The Texans, Jim, the Texans now look like a superpower team. It looks like an NBA. It looks like what they're kind of doing with the NBA. They build up the superpower team. Now, Mixon's okay. They've got Mixon. He's secure. He's solid at the running back position. They still got Dameon Pierce there. The acquisition of Diggs now brings in a true wide receiver one, where we were kind of questioning on who the one is. But there's a lot of confusion now. Now, I think this is terrible. I'll explain why. Jim, I know you're kind of excited about this. I don't know why. Other than CJ Stroud getting a boost, what are you so excited about here?
Well, first of all, this is the NFL formula for making a Super Bowl run. You secure your franchise quarterback. CJ Stroud is a franchise quarterback for this team. You then load up talent around him. They acquired Mixon. They acquired, they brain is
Diggs.
They acquired Diggs yesterday. They have loaded up the talent around this guy. That's what they do. He's on his rookie contract. CJ Stroud is cheap. They're loading up the talent around him. They are making a Super Bowl run. And yeah, I think this is fantastic for CJ Stroud. You know, I was out on drafting him as the QB5 overall. I thought it was too expensive because when you talk about a pure pocket passing quarterback, which is what CJ Stroud is, the dude needs to get 40 touchdown passes in order to be an elite quarterback for fantasy football. And I did not see a path to 40 touchdowns with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. But now with Diggs in the mix,
Right.
Again, I think, yes, absolutely. He can get 40 touchdowns with this team that is built around him. So I love it. I love Dalton Schultz. Again, this is a very positive thing for the team, for CJ Stroud. I'm very excited to see what this team can do this next year because I think they're going to go.
Why do you care? You're a fantasy guy like me. Why do you care what they do in reality? You're not even a Texans fan. Are you a Texans fan? If you're a Texans fan, we have a debate here. But now I'm seeing the volume distribution going 3 ways. Who is the one? On paper, it was Nico Collins last year. Then I thought because of the injury to Dell, he was the true one. He was going to come back strong. I've seen his training videos. I mean, Tank Dell looks amazing in the offseason. He is the man. I know he's a little undersized. I get it, but he was going to get a ton of volume. Now you got Diggs there, who is on paper politically supposed to be the RB or the wide receiver one. So they got to feed him, and he gets him. He gets moody and disgruntled if he doesn't get the ball. So how are you possibly excited about this?
Look, from a fantasy perspective, who are the winners here? Well, CJ Stroud's the big winner. I'm all in on Stroud for this year. I love. I already love Dalton Schultz as a solid quality value tight end one. But yeah, I mean, is it going to be hard to figure out which of these three? It's not really hard to figure out. Diggs is the one, right? But Diggs also has done this disappearing act in the second half of the past 2 seasons where he just disappears off the map. That's going to
Right.
open the door for either Nico Collins or Tank Dell to be the hero at the end of the season when you really need those players. So I'm really looking to see where does Tank and Nico end up on the draft board now after this trade, because I think they might be values. But I have to wait to see where they'll end up. I don't know where they're going to be yet.
The way that it sits now, I'm staying away from their tight end, Schultz. I'm staying away from Dell. I don't care if I get him with the last pick. And I'm staying away from Nico Collins. Barring any type of injury, I just don't like the three-way distribution where you're going to have a lot of games where Dell is going to be that guy. 2 touchdown game, Dell. And then there's another game where he gets 0 points and it all goes to Diggs. I have a feeling it's going to be that type of year with these guys where it's going to come in waves where for best ball, maybe a Dell or a Nico. But aside from that, for year long, staying away, other than CJ Stroud, problem is with CJ Stroud, he's going to go up in value. You're going to have to pay a higher draft. He's going to go up a round or two now.
He's already up there. I mean,
Yeah.
he's already, I think his ADP is like 57 right now. Like I said, he's the QB5 coming off the board. I don't see him surpassing Mahomes. I don't see him moving past Mahomes. Mahomes is like uh,
Four.
late, he's 4, right? But
Fourth
basically
overall.
late 4th. So, I mean, he may move up just a little bit, but he's still going to be the QB5.
No, no, no. No, I think Mahomes comes off earlier, isn't he? Because he's fourth overall amongst quarterbacks. CJ is
Yeah, he's the
5.
4th quarterback coming off the board. His ADP right now is 51. So that's that's early 5th round, but he's usually going off in the late 4th. But yeah, I mean, hold on. Where is CJ Stroud right now? I didn't even look
I
at
got
that this morning.
Mahomes ADP 34th overall. I look at PPR, even the PPR numbers that mixes everything up. So yeah, CJ Stroud is right after him. So CJ Stroud, I got ADP 45. So that's still expensive, man. I mean, I
Oh, on
don't know.
best ball, he's at 57.
Okay.
So yeah, about a half round past Mahomes. But yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, what pocket passing quarterback has the best chance at 40 touchdowns? Patrick Mahomes is always one, but CJ Stroud, I got to say, is number 2 on that list. I think he could do it with this team that's built around him. I like it a lot. And I also think Mixon is a great choice. This is a team that's going to have a lot of scoring opportunities. There's no one else in this backfield. He's going to take all the work on a good team. He catches the ball too. I mean, he's got a lot of value there. I think Mixon is a great value right now.
Yeah, Mixon is a good value for sure, especially with that offense opening things up. He's sitting as RB17 in PPR, which is I think really good value. Which again, you could probably wait a little bit on a running back. I mean, you get your secure running back in round 1 if you can, a Brees, a Bijan, maybe even a Kyron. Then you get a wide receiver, and you can wait. Again, I'll explain this all in 16 rounds once things are laid out after the NFL draft and things fizzle out. Also, to wrap this up here on this situation here, Dalton Kincaid gets a boost, and so does James Cook, in my opinion. We're gonna have to see Khalil Shakir. I just don't see him being the the wide receiver 1. They're gonna have to draft somebody. So as of right now, Kincaid and James Cook get a boost. Don't you agree?
Oh yeah, and I think whoever Buffalo drafts as a wide receiver
Yeah.
is going to be the wide receiver 1 on that team. So that's another very positive thing because I haven't looked at the draft order. I know they're in the late 20s right now. But that is certainly something that is worth paying attention to as well. And yes, Kincaid, big boost. And the Khalil Shakir is
Shakira. What
Shakira. Right. He is, I think he's a great best ball pick. I think he's a best ball kind of player, but I wouldn't want him for regular fantasy football.
All right, Jim, let's move on here. Let's get to it. Oh, magical twinkle time. All right, we are talking about bounce back players. We need like a bounce sound, not a magical twinkle.
Right.
Let's
Like a boing, boing, boing.
something like that. I was not prepared for this show from a sound effect perspective. All right, let's talk about this. Let's go Jamar Chase here, bounce back player. That's your first guy. I want to talk about him. Had a bit of a down year last year. We had Jake Browning throwing the ball. We had half a season with Burrow. This is your guy, Jim. Why do you so think Jamar Chase is going to bounce back strong?
Well, everybody's got this impression that he had a bad year last year. He really didn't have a bad year. 100 catches, 1,216 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's a solid year, although he was going top 3, so he was a little bit of a disappointment, but he was still a wide receiver 1. And the fact that he did it with Burrow for really only half the year and then Browning for the other half, shows that this is a excellent player entering his fourth season, a contract year season. With Joe Burrow healthy and playing together the whole year, I say this is one of those career seasons that he can have this year. I was projecting it last year, didn't happen, but this year I think it is the year that they can put it together. These two, they are dynamic together. They've been playing together for years now at this point because they played in college together. So I just see nothing but upside. And of all the early, the quarterbacks going in the top, all the wide receivers going in the top six, I think that he is absolutely the best. Of those options between Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, I see the most upside for Jamar Chase this year.
Look, I agree. I mean, we got to have a year now where Burrow has to stay healthy the entire season. They got to do something here. He got paid a lot. He's got to do it. It's Joe Burrow. And he's kind of been plagued with these injuries and excuses, and that comes to an end. And Jamar Chase is trending upwards. When I look at, we need to add that to the 16 round plus tools. Like, you have the trending up button, right? Where it's like, guys that are trending up. This guy definitely needs a trending button, by his name.
Oh,
And yeah,
absolutely. Well, I
yeah,
mean, we just got him as the bounce back player. So it's
yeah.
on the 16 rounds plus app, we got a little icon next to his name with a little chart which shows the arrow going up, a little box with the arrow pointed in the upward
Yeah.
direction. So you
You
can
need
see
one.
this is a guy that's going to bounce back. So
He
yeah.
he needs one, and he's trending upwards. Whereas certain players, I think, and that's the thing this year. And I want to talk about this real quick when we're talking fantasy football draft strategy, which again I explained in 60 rounds. Which again, subscribe, turn on the bell because you're going to get all these golden nuggets. But a lot of people are going to end up spending a lot of high draft capital on older wide receivers, guys like Devonte Adams, guys like Tyreek Hill, and guys that even AJ Brown. They're not young rookies, but I guess they're consistent. But I think there's just so much value this year, especially with these rookies coming in that could really, really tear it up. This is a really good wide receiver class, and guys that are going to be plugged in as the wide receiver one immediately. So I'm going to be looking for those gems. I'm going to tell you guys who those gems are. We're going to tell you guys in the 16 round plus app, which is available in May, and then also in the 16 round draft solution. You guys, it's going to be amazing. So bounce back, Jamar Chase. I'm not going to debate this at all. I think we kind of agree on most of these guys, except for I think the last guy. I think Jim's going to have an issue with. All right, let's move on here. My guy here is Calvin Ridley. Now, he is like, what, wide receiver 32nd right now, which is just immense value for a guy who's going to be the one. The biggest question mark here, Jim, maybe you're going to disagree with me on this pick as a bounce back, but the biggest argument here is Will Levis. Now, I've been hearing reports that he's going to be ready to go. He is not a proven quarterback. And whenever I like to draft a wide receiver, I like to get a proven quarterback throwing him the ball. And he's got the veteran DeAndre Hopkins there. They've got Tajay Spears and Pollard out of the backfield. They've got some weapons here. But Calvin Ridley has to do well. Someone's got to catch the ball. And I just see some upside with Will Levis. I know he had a couple games. I think the one game where he came out and he had like 3 or 4 touchdowns in that game to DeAndre Hopkins, and he kind of fell off after that. If we see that type of Levis, man, we got something special here. And understand, now he's got a year under his belt. He's with that offense. He's learning the schemes. He's with the coaching, and he's got some weapons now. So Calvin Ridley, I think, plugs in as the wide receiver one. He's good value, and he's definitely going to bounce back based on last year's ridiculous performance with Trevor Lawrence. What do you think of Ridley this year?
Well, I mean, again, I think that Ridley was overdrafted last year, but it's not like he had a bad season. He had 76 catches, 1,016 yards, and 8 touchdowns. It's a pretty
Right.
solid season overall. He wasn't worth his draft pick, but his big issue was that he was very inconsistent with
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. Now, will he develop a better relationship with Levis? We'll have to wait and see what happens there. I am not a fan of Levis personally, but I do see that they have surrounded him with talent. He's got better talent this year than he had last year on this team. So, and just the fact that Ridley will be the number one, he's going to get, he's going to get the lion's share of the targets. I think he's going to be fine. And right now on Best Ball, he's going ADP 63.
Yeah.
So not a bad position. This is usually the point where you'd be grabbing maybe your third or fourth wide receiver. I think he's a solid choice right there. So
Yeah. Am I excited
Good
about him
player.
as last year? We were excited about him last year. What a big letdown. You think the young dynamic Trevor Lawrence, and he just crapped the bed, man. And
Trevor Lawrence really just took a dump, and I'm just 100% out on Lawrence. He couldn't do it, and again, they did the same thing. They surrounded his team with talent. They brought in Calvin Ridley, and somehow the guy does worse. And so that's not a good sign for Trevor Lawrence going forward. I think he's probably just going to finish out his term in Jacksonville, and then he's going to go be a backup somewhere. I think that's the caliber of player that he is. But he's still the starter because he was the number one overall pick. So that's why.
all right, your next guy here, Jim. Let's dive into him. Patrick Mahomes, and it wasn't that bad of a drop last year. I mean, it was a drop. He finished eighth amongst quarterbacks. 401 completions, 20. I mean, only 27 touchdowns. The 14 interceptions sucked. The ratio sucked. So when you're talking bounce back, how much of a bounce back are we talking? Like 50 touchdown season bounce back? That type of Pat Mahomes? Is that what you're talking?
I don't think he's going to go back to that. But if you look at the prior three seasons,
Yeah.
41 touchdowns, 37 touchdowns, 38 touchdowns. This is why Patrick Mahomes is constantly in the conversation as a top three quarterback for fantasy, is because he's got that 40 touchdown upside. And so, I think last year was a down year for him. But I think it's a little bit of an aberration. And I think you can say that probably last year is his floor. His floor is a mid to low end QB1. That's still really good. He's the fourth quarterback coming off the board this year. Last year, he was the number two quarterback coming off the board. So he's a bit more of a bargain. And as far as pocket passing quarterbacks go, this is the guy I would consider. Him and CJ Stroud are really the only two that I'm really considering for pocket passing quarterbacks this year because of their upside to get to that 40 touchdown threshold. Patrick Mahomes can do it any given year. He's the best player in the league, hands down, best quarterback in the league. There's no question about this. No one questions that. Are they going to three-peat? I mean, if they're going to three-peat, he's going to need another 40 touchdown season. So,
Yeah, I mean, Rashi Rice with the off-field issues. I don't know if there's going to be a looming suspension there. So you got that. Then you're contending with a declining Travis Kelsey. But if you believe the fix is in, which a lot of people do, then they're in for a three-peat. If that's the case, you're looking for a big season out of Pat Mahomes. But I would think that they should look at probably a wide receiver as soon as their draft pick comes up, just to give him some more weapons. Again, with the declining Travis Kelsey and the off-field issues with guys like Rashi Rice. So, but I mean, Pat Mahomes thrives with anybody really, but it's just nicer to give him some weapons along with his talents. But yeah, I think no way but up from based on last year's finishing eighth amongst quarterbacks, which is, yeah, Jared Goff finished ahead of him last year, Jim. 289 points compared to 280. Jared Goff beating Pat Mahomes last year.
yeah,
Wow.
it was a disappointing year for Mahomes, no question. Now they did bring in Hollywood Brown, and I'm betting they will probably spend a second or third round pick on a wide receiver. Obviously, the Rashi Rice incident is bad, but we don't know if that's going to impact Rashi Rice this season as
Right.
far as any penalties or suspensions. The good news is no one died, so it's not
That's
any
fair.
that kind of a situation. But he
Yeah.
did some bad stuff. He left the scene of an accident, and some people were injured. So that's Rashi Rice is going to have to deal with that. Rashi Rice is has kind of been off my board because I think he was being overdrafted, going basically end of the second, early third round, and he's not even the number one receiver on that team.
Yeah.
Kelsey's the number one receiver on that team. He's going ahead of Kelsey, so I wasn't buying that at all. Anyway, yeah, it's going to be a high-powered offense. We know what Kansas City is, and they're going to do it again. And Mahomes is going to be great for fantasy one more time.
All right, moving along here, my bounce back here. But again, I'm not overly excited about him. I look at this guy and I'm just like, I'm comfortable with a better finish than last year. But the guy I'm talking about is Javonte Williams. What the value? I'm looking at him right now. He's sitting RB 24. He's like a tier 4 RB. But so you got the value, but he is the RB1 on his team. He was untouched in NFL free agency, meaning another running back didn't come in as a threat to hurt him from a volume perspective. Now, last year had a mediocre season, finished 29th or something like. He finished poorly last year. 217 attempts. The attempts were there. I'd like to see that bumped up. But even with that, with the attempts, 217 attempts, he only averaged 3.6 yards per carry, only 3 rushing touchdowns, 774 yards on the ground. And his receptions, 47 receptions, not bad, on 58 targets and 2 receiving touchdowns. So, I just want to see this go up. And again, if they don't draft anybody else, he should be the man there. But this team has question marks in all categories. They don't even have a wide receiver right now. They're kind of
They didn't
dismantled.
even have a quarterback.
They don't have a core. Yeah, that too. Uh, I was just yeah, absolutely. So they got to take a look at the draft. What are they going to do, and see how this fizzles out. But even if you bring in a young rookie quarterback, how is that going to translate? Are they going to run the ball more? They got Jaleel McLaughlin, who showed some flashes last year, and is Stidham going to be the guy that's going to be the quarterback that you trust? I can't imagine going into a season and trusting any offensive weapon, including a Javante or a Cortland Sutton. They got rid of Judy. They opened up a void to bring someone else. But I can't imagine starting it with either a rookie quarterback that's we got to see who it is or Stidham to start, Jim. I don't know. I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy, but he can only do better, right? I mean, there's nobody else there. McLaughlin or whatever. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
I mean, the positive things about Javante I see are, first of all, he's now going to be 2 years
Yeah.
removed from that knee injury, that season-ending knee injury that he had, which is good. And it's a contract year for him. He's in the final year of his contract, so it's a do or die year for his career. So he's going to be motivated. And you talk about you talk about the coaching system. This is this is a coach that uh, likes to focus on the run. He always has a good running game. And so I think that, this team doesn't have any real wide receivers right now. I mean, their wide receiver one is Cortland Sutton, who's terrible. Um, and so, and no quarterback either. So I think they're going to focus on the run game. I think that's positive for Javante. He is a bargain on the draft board right now. ADP is
I think he's 20.
93.9.
That's wild.
So yeah, so again, that's basically ninth round uh, for a draft pick, and I'd be willing to take a ninth round RB1 on a team if he gets all the work. He's
Yeah.
gonna be productive for fantasy. We see this time and again. If you get all the work, you'll be just fine, even if the team is terrible. So
It's a funny year because we got so many running backs that are RB1s, right, on their team, but their value is amazing. We don't typically see this type of value. You got Zamir White, Tajay Spears, this guy, right? They're in a position to be the RB1, but they haven't solidified that position completely, or they have, but there's some uncertainty, right? Maybe their rookie comes in or a veteran comes in, and because of their lackluster performances in the prior. But if a guy like Javante sits there prior right before the season starts in this position, then we've got some great value here and some upside. Like you said, a couple years removed from that injury. So you never know, man. He's just been kind of boring. Is he gonna bounce back something to watch? I think so. I think he only does better, right? He has to.
yeah, I think he's gonna be good this year. And so and at that draft pick, it's a low risk pick. So
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, it's not going to kill your team. But if he actually does come in and can produce like at an RB2 level,
Yeah.
you're going to have an every week starter that you got in the ninth round. That's perfect. That's perfect for fantasy. So yeah, I like it.
All right, Jim, your next pick is Josh Jacobs. And some people, are indifferent about this one or just they don't care or they have a difference of opinion. I think he bounces back. What are your thoughts on Josh Jacobs? Again, new offense and totally new to situation.
I think you could say upgrades across the board for Josh Jacobs from the situation he had at Las Vegas last year. And you also got to remember that he's only 2 seasons removed from when he got 1,650 rushing yards and 400 receiving yards. He had over 2,000 scrimmage yards in 2022. The dude's only 26 years old. He is now going to a better team with a better quarterback, a better offensive line, better offensive weapons, that's going to be able to score a lot, that's going to be in scoring position a lot. Dude, there's nothing but upside for Josh Jacobs here. There's no one behind him. AJ Dillon's behind him. AJ Dillon can't do crap.
Nothing.
And so you know, when we talk about 2022, the dude had over 400 touches and targets. Anytime a running back has that sort of workload, and his name is not Derrick Henry, he flops the next year because his body took a severe beating. And that's what we saw in 2023. It was just a combination of a lot of bad stuff. He
Right.
was injured for a part of the year. He wasn't playing at the same level he was playing the season before. But now, 2 years removed from that heavy duty year, in a better situation with a better team, I see this guy going back up into the top 5 for running backs. And right now, going at ADP 31 in best ball, as the RB9. I love the idea of being able to get Josh Jacobs in the third round. I just see nothing but upside for this guy. I'm very excited about his situation, and I think he's going to succeed tremendously on Green Bay.
Yeah, coming from a guy who doesn't like Josh Jacobs on a personal level. If you don't know the story, it's just I can't keep repeating it. We had it out over DM a couple of years ago. He wanted to fight. I called him out. Let's fight. I said he sucked in a game, and then he came into my DM saying he wanted to fight. I said yes, I agreed. Let's do a boxing match. And then he agreed, and then he told me to pull up, and then he blocked me. He says I knew where he was at because called me his cousin. I'm not first of all, I didn't know where he was at, and I'm not related to him in any way. But I did meet him one time at the fantasy football draft when he came in as a rookie. I was at that draft. I met him. He was a nice guy back then. I don't know what happened. But anyway, maybe he still is, just not to me. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. Nice to people that pay him or something like that. Maybe he's nice to the Packers owners. So again, a guy who doesn't like him, I think he's in a great situation. He can have a monster year. We'll leave it at that. I think he's in a great situation. Jordan Love, young, dynamic. AJ Dillon isn't going to do anything. I think AJ Dillon's perfect if he stays there because he's the depth that they need, but not enough to take away from. That's the type of gap. You want that big gap between your starter and your backup. When you got a situation like Tajay and Pollard, the gap isn't that big. You could say they're almost the same player, but you give the edge to Tajay. In my opinion, there's certain situations where the gap isn't big. This is one of those big gap situations where you want to dive in on that player who got paid, incentivized. And now typically I'm not into players changing teams and really thriving, but the situation, I mean, looks like a perfect, the soil is ready. It's ready to be planted and grow and absolutely dominate this year. So again, not being a fan of him, but he's primed, Jim. He's primed. All right, last one here. I mean, obviously this is an obvious one, but I want to explain how I actually like this. I like the New York Jets offense. I don't think I've ever said that in the history of fantasy, from Sanchez being quarterback in the butt fumble and the team just being a disaster for years, man. I think they're actually a good team this year. Now, they brought in Mike Williams. By the way, the guy I'm talking about is Aaron Rodgers for the bounce back. I just think he could have a great season. Do I trust him as my QB1? No. Do I trust him as a backup? Yeah. Do I trust him as a second quarterback in a 2-quarterback league? Sure. But not my ace quarterback to anchor my team. But barring any injury, I'm assuming he played last year, had a safe season. He bounces back to Aaron Rodgers from maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Not prime Aaron Rodgers, but an Aaron Rodgers is going to be efficient. 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 3,800 yards, that type of thing. Some scrambles for some runs and a couple rushing touchdowns. If he's healthy and he's going, he's got some good weapons, Jim. The addition of Breece Hall is going to take away some of that rushing pressure. He's a great running back. You got your ultimate weapon in Garrett Wilson, and you got some additional, got some accessories there like Lazard and Mike Williams that could be great in the red zone. So, I mean, Mike Williams, if he stays healthy, he's a good red zone target, which increases Aaron Rodgers' value in touchdowns as well. I know you're not a fan of Aaron Rodgers, but don't you imagine him having a good season this year?
Dude is 40. He's turning 41 during the football season.
Yeah.
And he's coming off of an Achilles tear. I mean, again, it's for me, the Jets are cursed. They are a cursed franchise. If anything, remember how we talked last year and we were like, the Zach Wilson thing didn't work out. They took Zach Wilson like 3rd overall 2 years ago. He was awful. So they went to plan B, which was bringing Aaron Rodgers to ride this team to the Super Bowl. And he gets injured on the very first play of the football season last year. And like I said, this is a cursed franchise. And I just am having a really tough time placing my bets on a 41-year-old quarterback coming back from an Achilles injury. I just, when you think about where he's going on the draft board right now, and that you could maybe get yourself like Stafford or Goff or even Kirk Cousins, who is coming off a similar injury, but is 5 years younger than him. I mean, it's just like, I just can't see any situation where I would take Aaron Rodgers as my QB2. I think there's just better options for the QB2 at around the range where he's being drafted. But if you want to take a chance on Rodgers, go for it, man. Go for it. I say more power to you. Do that.
He comes with risk, but he's due for a bounce back. I mean, it was embarrassing, dude, what happened, last year to him. And there's no way but up. Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson. That could be exciting. And where is Garrett Wilson sitting right now? Like, this is the thing that, like,
Garrett Wilson is still like late first, early second. He's going very, very early.
see, that's the thing, right? You guys hate on Aaron Rodgers. Everybody hates on Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, where's his ADP? He's like quarterback 20.
Yeah, quarterback 20, ADP right now, 141 in best ball.
But they go like Garrett Wilson's like that's half point PPR. He's number 7 and half point. He's number 7 in PPR. Yeah, like you rank this guy so high, but that's really predicated on the success of Aaron Rodgers. So they're gonna go hand in hand. They're gonna succeed together. So I don't know. You can't just be high on Garrett Wilson and completely disregard Aaron Rodgers. That's exactly what's happening right now in the
Well,
Kashima's
you know,
ranking.
Garrett Wilson is the one on that team. He's going to get the majority of the targets, and it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He's still going to get a lot of targets. I think maybe Garrett Wilson is maybe a little bit overdrafted, but he has the potential and he's shown what he can do. And I think people are excited about the fact that Aaron Rodgers will be throwing balls to him, and it can be like a Devontae Adams kind of thing, kind of performance. Um, you know, I haven't really gotten Garrett in any of my drafts so far. I've kind of bypassed him whenever he's been on the board for me. But, I'm not opposed to taking Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to be fine whether or not Aaron Rodgers is good. I think he can still do a lot of yards after the catch and stuff like that. So, I think he's going to be fine regardless.
It's funny you say that. He is a sleeping giant. I honestly think Garrett Wilson's a sleeping giant. He was 4th in targets last year. This is a guy who didn't have Aaron Rodgers, who was the quarterback last year? Was it
Zach Wilson? It was Zach Wilson.
Not the whole time, wasn't it?
4th in targets from Zach Wilson.
Like, and then no, you had Trevor Siemian in for like 5 games. He had a couple completions, Tim Boyle. But yeah, it was Zach Wilson for the most part. He played 12 games last year. Like I said, Trevor Siemian was in there. And this guy, we're talking, Garrett Wilson was 4th in targets. That's wild. 95 receptions, right? Again, you want those receptions to go out. You want the accuracy to be a little higher, but only 3 touchdowns. So when I look at Garrett Wilson, man, I'm actually, after this conversation, I'm actually a little more turned on to possibly draft him if I get him. If I can get a secure running back and I could sneak and grab him in the 2nd round as my wide receiver 1, I think you're in a good situation, honestly. Like, he's going to eat.
Are you going for Brees and Garrett in a 1-2 punch and just ride that?
I actually thought about that. If that was the case, if I was really going for Garrett, I'd almost like to mix it up and go buy Jan and then go Garrett. That seems more ideal. I just don't want all my eggs in the New York Jets basket, especially in the first 2 rounds. It just doesn't feel warm and fuzzy with the cursed team and then almost kind of bringing that over to my fantasy team. So, yeah, I mean, I like Garrett Wilson. I think there's so much to be had. Those 3 touchdowns, no way but up. And 4th in targets with Zach Wilson throwing the ball. That's interesting. That's an interesting stat. So, guys, keep it up. Keep that on your radar. And bounce back. Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley, Pat Mahomes, Javonte, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Rodgers. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below, guys. I appreciate it. Smash thumbs up. Drop a comment. And Jim, man, I appreciate you having on again.
Hey, thank you for having me, counselor. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you. Bounce Back Players, Fantasy Football 2024. We're out. We'll talk soon.